Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Sherman of the MLBeers podcast with Phillip Corwin. How you doing today, Phil?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm tired, but making it through.
Of course, we're all making it through. Yeah, but I will have to agree with you. I'm tired too. Working real hard. Working now finally 2 jobs. So the joys of it all, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you get to go watch baseball in your second job, so that can't be too bad.
Oh no, it's actually not too bad. I mean, besides having to really focus on when to give them the 20 seconds or the 30 seconds, but I mean, it could be a lot worse. So anyways,
Right.
Today's headlines, well, this past week's headlines, really none of them came throughout the week until the past 2 to 3 days. As, of course, Starling Marte was found, well, supposedly found with PED usage or whatever, however you want to say it. And, of course, it's his first time, so he gets the 80-game suspension. But I did not know this, that you're actually banned from the playoffs that year, which was really interesting. I did not know that.
Yep. Which, the Pirates, again, maybe one of those fringe teams for that second wildcard spot. And so if they do make it that far, it's, he'll help them get to that point, but he wouldn't be able to help them in the playoffs, which would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's, they were talking about it today on all the, especially during the Cardinals broadcast when I got to watch the game, they were just like, it's just really, really weird to see all that because you have this guy that is perfectly healthy, he's perfectly fine, but you can't use him. And so I guess I kind of feel that way where it's just, I guess, ball busting in a way where it's just, really downtrodden. But
And, what's interesting with, what we think about PED use, we think a guy with inflated batting numbers.
mm-hmm.
And looking at Marte, he's only batting .241. He only has 2 home runs.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's not like coming out of the gate hitting 350 plus with 5 or 6 home runs.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see and hear, what exactly he was using them for, if he was hurt or something like that.
Exactly, and I feel like if a player is hurt, a MLB advisor / official should give him the proper medical advice with, all right, this is, even though you're injured, even though this would work great, this has all the bad stuff in it, let's give you some, give them another medication where they would be safe. And it feels like they haven't really done that with the organizations and the MLB. And I was just, you brought up his stat line real quick, and this past week he actually went 125 with 1 home run, 2 RBIs in 26 plate appearances. But again, I think that was,
and it looks like he's leading the Pirates with a 28.8% strikeout rate.
Yeah. And of course, I did all my stats for, the week, but he went 38.5 strikeouts rating. But anyway, yeah, it's just really weird to see a really good player. They've actually been saying that this is like the best player ever to get to use PEDs, if that makes sense. Like in this era now.
Okay.
Like I'm not saying he's
well,
like
you can look at.
What were we gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, in this era, you got Bartolo Colon, you had Melky Cabrera there for a couple years in 2013, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, we haven't had a guy like of his stature, I guess, either this year or last year, get the 80 games besides A-Rod.
Exactly, and that's just a whole different story with A-Rod. But anyways, let's keep on going. And somehow bringing up A-Rod being a Miami native going to the University of Miami. Um, Derek Jeter is teaming up with Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, and I guess a runner-up candidate in the Republican presidential race in 2016, are going to try to buy the Marlins, which I think is really interesting. So,
What do you think Jeter could do with a team like that?
I think Jeter, it's going to be interesting because you can look at the LA organization because Magic Johnson has part ownership with it, and he's the athlete of the ownership. And what's going to be different is Jeter knows baseball, Johnson doesn't. He doesn't know the ins and outs like Jeter does. So I think Jeter is going to bring that one-up perspective to that. And also, with Jeb Bush, I think he might bring in his little brother, George W., because even before George Bush...
Get a little Rangers action in on that?
Yeah, exactly, and hopefully make horrible trades like the Sammy Sosa trade. But I digress. But yeah, I'm hopeful. I really hope that goes well for them. The Marlins organization really needs to get some shake up in there.
It would be nice to see the Marlins kind of be the team they were like in '97, and was it 02 or 03? 03. Okay. Bring back those type of years, minus after the '97 season, not trading absolutely everybody.
Yeah, not having the fire sales after the 2 seasons. They also did that in 2003 also.
Exactly. Be able to afford a little bit of payroll and develop more of their farm system. Because, Florida is a big baseball state. So.
Exactly. And, of course, hell, the better team in Miami is the University of Miami. And I'm pretty sure all the fish heads down there want to change that. Because, the University of Miami has an incredible program. Like I said, Alex Rodriguez was part of that, part of those teams back in, I'm guessing, the early 90s, if I'm correct. And I know John Jay was one. And there's countless others, but those are the ones that I really know all about. But for the Marlins organization, I think it will be really good. And I guess the only guy reading the article real quick, the only guy that they're really facing is a guy by Wayne Rothbaum, and I really don't know what this guy does. Again, I was skimming through the article, and I guess it kind of sounds, again, skimming it kind of sounds like this guy could be another Jed Loria, or I want to say Joe Loria. But that's the guy from Fox 4 up in Kansas City. But yeah, Mr. Loria, we'll just keep it as that. He bought the team in 01 and just really he brought him at a really nice high in 2003, winning it, and just crashed. And like you said, it's a perfect time for them to develop great talent, which they've already have. It's just keeping it and not doing anything drastic.
Oh yeah, and I feel like they would have a better pipeline to Cuba than most other MLB teams, just because where they're at in Florida.
And I think that might happen in the future with getting political real quick with Cuba and U.S. opening up relations after 50 years and all that jazz, but with that, I think they could open up a pipeline, but also you have to still worry about Cuba not letting their citizens be able to come here for the United States to play ball. That's why you have Aledmys Diaz and all these other Cuban players really
having to defect.
Giannis Cespedes,
Kendrys Morales.
Kendrys Morales, like all those guys. Um, you know, if you really think about it, just real quick, if they couldn't defect, if they were okay to play and still have their Cuban citizenship, what would the WBC look like? Because that's where all the power comes from. If you really think about it.
Oh, could you imagine lining up a team with Kendrick Morales, Diaz, and
Yes,
Cespedes,
and
and
Cespedes.
is Stanton Cuban?
No, Stanton is not Cuban. Everybody,
No,
I think he's
I don't know.
mixed, mixed ethnicities, but he played for the U.S. team, so
Yeah, I knew that, but I just don't know what. I don't know. Probably just being in Florida, I associate a bigger Cuban population down in Florida than anywhere else.
I mean, you could say that Eric Hosmer could be Cuban because isn't he from Florida?
Yes, and his mom's actually Cuban.
See, there you go. So Eric Hosmer, would it be 2021 for the next WBC? Yeah, Cuba, 2021. Eric Hosmer.
Yeah, and if you want a guy that will hit ground balls 60% of the time, sign him up.
Yeah, I saw that in our group chat. Yeah,
Oh my
not
gosh,
good for
yeah.
an FA, but
No,
upcoming FA, I should say. But
no.
anyway, one little tidbit before we get to the show, to the actual meat of the show. Ichiro had his last hit in Seattle, and it was a home run, which I was really happy about. So that's just me.
That's a lot. It's a lot like Jeter getting his 3,000 hit when he hit a home run.
Exactly. Or Jeter getting his last hit in Yankee Stadium was just a ground ball between the second and first baseman, like perfect hit for them to win the game. So
Yep.
anyway,
It's funny how baseball works out.
exactly. So anyway, to the meat and potatoes of it all, we're going with our second week of the divisional rundowns, and we decided to go with the NL Central from the last episode. We decided to go with the NL Central, the Central period. And, instead of talking about the AL first of all, we're going to talk about the NL Central. So, of course, if you don't know who's in the NL Central, which sometimes I do forget, even though my favorite team's in there, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Chicago Cubs, and the St. Louis Cardinals. So, I'm going to start with the Pittsburgh Pirates because I have them first in my rundown. So, anyways, they went 3-7 for last week. Lost both single games to the Reds and Red Sox, which the Red Sox game was actually I don't know why I have it 7. I think it's 3-4 to be honest with you. I think I had
Well,
7.
their last 10 games, they're 3-7.
There you go. But I think it's supposed to be 3-4, and I did not undo that typo. But anyways, they lost against the Reds and the Red Sox in their each games on, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday, which the Red Sox game was a makeup from the week before. They swept the Cubs and lost both games against the Cardinals. In the single games, they couldn't produce enough to win, even if they got on base 21 times. But the 28 times they were left on base. Pitchers, on the other hand, were not that bad. Both went 6 innings and low earned runs, but the hitting really got to him. 8 with Nova and 5 with Cool. And I really like Cool's last name because it's Kuhl, and I want to say Kuth for some odd reason. But I'm guessing I have ADHD and all those really crazy made up, well, I shouldn't say made up disorders, but anyway, against the Cubs, they were unexpected. It was unexpected that they swept them in Wrigley, which I was really surprised that they swept them in Wrigley, but I'll explain later on. And they combined for 26 hits, 18 runs, and 10 walks. Comparing to the Cubs, the Cubs had 23 hits, 10 runs, and 9 walks. what was even more interesting was the Pirates had 37 left on base, while the Cubs had 56 left on base, which I've never seen 56 before like that. So they must have really, the Pirates must have had a high left on base percentage, which I think they did, but we'll go through that in a moment. On the pitching side with the game, it was even better. 7 earned runs, 9 walks, 25 strikeouts, compared to the Cubs' 17 earned runs, 10 walks, and 19 Ks, which again, if you think about the Cubs, they have Arrieta, Lester, and Lackey, Hendricks, and Anderson. I'm always going to forget Anderson because I think of him as a Dodger first, then a Cub. But anyways, let me do this real quick. Okay, and then, what were you going to say?
I was looking at the interesting pitcher from the Pirates, Jameson Talon.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked him over?
I have all their all the weekly stat right in front of me, real quick. And what's up?
I was just looking at, he has 3 games started with a .9 ERA, a 92.9% left on base, and a 20% strikeout rate.
Yeah, he has at the moment for the week, he has a 0 ERA, 7.71 Ks through 9. But he was not my best player for the team. But anyways, to talking about the Cardinals when the Pirates faced them, things sputtered. Only 2 runs and 16 hits and 28 left on base. Compared to the Cardinals, they should have beat them, which there was moments watching those games where the Pirates could have beat the Cardinals, even though I didn't want them to because I'm a Cardinals fan. But it was just, there was moments where it's just really out of control, and somehow the Cardinals really they just looked really weird. But anyways, back to the Pirates at hand. They should have beat them, like I said, 9 hits with 11 on base with 4 runs. On the throwing side, it wasn't pretty. Only 8 strikeouts, 9 hits, and 1 walk. But like I said, they should have beat the Cardinals because the Cardinals had 11 hits and 9 strikeouts. So batting this week for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they averaged 3 runs, 6 hits, 2.2 walks, 8.2 strikeouts, and 10.7 left on base. That's just the normal statistics out of getting it from the box score. And then their weeklies were they had a 240, 306, and 408 slash line, which ranked them this week at 16, 15, and 12. And their BABIP was a 275, which they were ranked 18th. A 167 isolated power, which they were ranked 14th. 6.6 walk rate and an 18.8 K rate. On the pitching side, 8.5 hits, 2.8 earned runs, 3.3 walks, 8.2 Ks, strikeouts, and just under 1 home run, average 1 home run. But the interesting statistics, the 330 ERA, the 305 fielding independent pitching rating, the 675 strikes through 9, 240 walks per 9, a 276 opponent's BABIP, that's really good. Of course, you don't want it over 300. And a 67.3 left on base percentage. So, and that left on base percentage has them 28th out of 30th. So, I mean, looking again, of course, I did more statistical analysis through just adding numbers. They were actually second, even though with those numbers, they were actually second in the divisional ranking, I guess. But anyway, Chad Kuhl the pitcher. Uh, I have him as my best player because he went 2 games. His ERA is a 2.19. K through 9 is a 6.757 with a walk rate of .73. His BABIP is a 2s all around, and his left on base percentage is a 70. And of course, all these stats, I did it by the week. I didn't do it by how they're doing overall. So, I mean, you might be looking at other stats and seeing that they're different, but I did it by the week. You probably did it overall, correct?
Yeah, I was looking at it overall, and honestly, those numbers aren't too far off. His left on base is a 72.7.
Mm-hmm.
His K percentage is a 19.4. His base on balls is a 9.7. His ERA is a 2.6, and his fielding independent is a 285.
See, there you go.
So,
and 193
no,
for the week for the fielding independent pitching, but
week by week in baseball, week by week.
Exactly, and I think the reason why I wanted to go week by week is because some of the averages can get, hitting wise, some of the averages can be in flux, where they might have a 300 average or above, but they could be swinging 180. But, of course, that's usually later on in the season, not early in the season.
I was going to say, this early in the season, it's easier to go week by week than overall because they've only played 15 games so far. So it's kind of, because especially of a pitcher, they've only had 3 starts this season. If one of those 3 starts was absolutely terrible, their ERA, their fielding independent, left on base, and K rate is going to be atrocious.
Exactly. And I went, again, like I said, I went for the weekly, and I really had to decide. It was kind of tough for me to decide who was the worst player, and it wasn't because they were all good. There was just a nice handful of players that really did horrible. Like, the player that I chose was Josh Bell, but also you could go for John Jaso.
Or Jordy Mercer.
Jordy Mercer, Phil Gosselin, and the only reason why I bring him up is because he was in 6 games, but of course he only had 9 plate appearances. And John Jaso, I didn't add much to him because, of course, he had 11 plate appearances. But expect those to go up pretty soon because since he will be, today he was playing right field for them, he's going to be looking as the right fielder. And I also think John Jaso is an actual Pirate and not just a Pittsburgh Pirate. But that's just me.
Those dreadlocks, man. Those dreadlocks.
Exactly.
They're a dead giveaway for a real Pirate.
Exactly. I'm just hoping that he wears a eye patch to the stadium one of these days. Because it would be perfect.
Full-on pirate gear.
Exactly. And if they need like a 21st century new wave design, it would be like definitely John Jaso with an eye patch. Because, I mean, that's definitely like that's your millennial look right there. That's what it should be. Because pretty much everybody thinks Johnny Depp is the definition of a pirate. I think John Jaso is more definition of a pirate than Johnny Depp. But that's just me.
Well, John Jaso actually plays for the Pirates, as in Johnny Depp just played one as an actor.
For 10 plus years. Because they're still making those Pirate of the Caribbean movies.
Because why stop?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Fast and the Furious movies.
If it's not just thrown in my face constantly, how am I going to know if I like it or not?
Yeah, I guess you're right about that. Because, I mean, it could be a lot worse. So
it could be.
Anyway, I'm just gonna say some of the stats about Josh Bell real quick. The reason why I think he was the worst player of the team. Of course, he played 7 games, all 7 games. He had 20 plate appearances compared to John Jaso's 11. And where is he? Jordy Mercer's 25. But see, Jordy Mercer, what really got me Again, weekly stats was the 273, while Josh Bell had the 211. But anyways, his batting average was a 211, on base percentage 250, slugging 211. His BABIP was 250. His walk rate was a 5%, and his K rate was 15%. He had no home runs. He had 1 run in and 4 hits. And that's it.
Yeah, you're expecting Josh Bell to step up and become that everyday first baseman like he's been touted about. And yeah, he's a prospect. And is he rookie eligible?
I want to say yes, but then I want to say no, because I think he passed rookie eligibility last year. Because I do remember him playing earlier in the season, but then again he could have done bad and just went back to the minors.
Okay,
but
but
I could
regardless,
yeah,
he's working his second way through the MLB, and it takes an adjustment period. He's only 24, but the way he hit down in the minors and the way the Pirates expect him to be, he can't come up in the first 15 games of this season hitting 205 with 1 home run.
Exactly.
As a first baseman.
Exactly. And do you have any questions for me about these Pirates that I could possibly answer, since I have everything in front of me now?
No. Pirates are doing what I kind of expected the Pirates to do. No reason to change my off-season predictions quite yet.
Gotcha. So just the flash in the pan moments, but then they dwindle out once in a while. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Right.
Just they're doing what I expected the Pirates to do.
Exactly. So anyway, the second team on the list is the Cincinnati Reds, and
which by somehow they're leading the division.
Yes, and actually they lead the overall statistics. Going through each statistics, giving them point values and all that stuff, which I'll explain later on. But anyway, they went 2 for 4 this week, though, winning the single games against the Pirates and the Orioles, and then they were swept by the Brewers in a 4-game series. In those single games, the Reds beat those teams by a combined stat of 18 runs, 26 hits, 9 walks, 13 strikeouts, and left 34 on base. What was even more exciting is that they threw 20 Ks and gave only 3 walks and 5 earned runs with their 4th and 5th starter, which I believe their 4th and 5th starter, when I was looking at it, was Garrett and Arroyo, which is really surprising from him.
Oh, yeah, Bronson Arroyo coming in at 40 years old, throwing a 13.2% strikeout rate, and I think his fastball velocity is only averaging like 80, mid-80s.
Hey,
you
got to get him on the really. If you're throwing mid-80s, you just got to get him with movement. That's all it is.
Well, his left on base for the year is 56.3%, and he has an 8.4 ERA.
Yes, and I'm looking at his weekly, and he had a 61.2% left on base, with a K per 9 of 4.91, and I wish this actually spread out a little more. And he had a 6.55 ERA. But again, that's playing 2 games during the week.
Yeah, and the one game before that, his first start of the season, it's just he's going to be easier to pick up as a hitter.
Yes, and I think it's just because he's 40, he's digressed a lot. He's not what he's used to be. And also, I know the Cincinnati Reds wanted him. I think it was because they knew they can get him for cheap, but also it's former, Red great Bronson Arroyo from the early 2010 years, from 09 to 13/14. So.
Oh yeah, no, there was plenty of nostalgia when they re-signed him.
Exactly.
And if he can somehow go out and give you 15 to 20 starts, not a full season at 31 or 32, and he not outright lose half of those,
Mm-hmm.
I think the Reds are going to get their money's worth out of him from
I,
ticket sales alone, because just the nostalgia factor from the fans. They're going to want to go see Arroyo one last time.
exactly. So during their series against the Brewers, their runs reversed. They were outscored 14-26, out hit 29-34, and outwalked 9-17. The only thing that they did was to outstrike the Brew Crew 26-36. On the pitching side, it was the same thing. They gave up nine home runs in that process. And what also didn't help is that two of their four starters didn't go 5+ innings, which was Mr. Brandon Finnegan and Sal Romano. And I believe Finnegan went out early because he got injured in that game. So, because I didn't check
it looks like
all the way, but yeah.
Between Finnegan and Garrett, those are looking their top two starting pitchers right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Finnegan, like you said, yeah, it looks like he went out injured because of his 3 starts, he only has 10 innings pitched.
Exactly. And also the game started for the week, he only pitched 1 inning. So, yeah, I just couldn't remember what he injured, but I did see that he did have an injury. So, for the week, for the Cincinnati Reds, they averaged 5.3 runs per game, 9.2 hits, 3 walks, 6.5 strikeouts, 12.7 left on base. And for the awesome normal stats, they went 270, 335, and 441 on their slash line, which gets them in the top 10 in all those lists. A .304 BABIP, which gets them 7th. A isolated power rating of 172, which is 9th. A walk rate of 7.8, which is 16th, which that's the dip. But it's also good that their strikeout rate was only 17%, which is 5th. So, I mean, that's really good for them.
Oh yeah, and you're looking at guys like Joey Votto for the year with 63 plate appearances. He's only striking out 11.1% of the time with 4 home runs. And granted his average is 226, but he's doing Joey Votto type things.
The old Joey Votto, so he's actually trying to help his draft stock, his trade stock, I guess, right?
Exactly. Yeah, if Joey Votto can keep that strikeout rate around 10 to 15 and hit multiple home runs, but his average is always going to be around there.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to help the team with RBIs and home runs. So
exactly,
if he can keep that up and not strike out, because his on base percentage is 333 and his slugging is a 509 with a 118 WRC plus.
Mm-hmm.
So if he can get on a team where they're in contention late, even getting traded to the American League as a DH is not a bad option for him.
Exactly. And that's why I chose him as the best player of the week, and I'll explain in a moment. Pitching, though, for the Cincinnati Reds, they gave up eight hits, average of 8 hits, a 5.2 earned run average, not ERA, which that's what ERA stands for, but just earn an average of earned runs, 3.3 walks, 9.3 strikeouts, and almost 2 home runs with 1.8 home runs. Their ERA, though, is a 4.67, which is 24th in the league. A 4.81 of fielding independent pitching, which is 26th. Then you have 9.33 Ks per 9, which is 6th. A walk per 9 of 3.33, which is 21st. A 268 BABIP, which is 10th, and 76% with their left on base percentage, which is 11th. And I mean, I think that was probably, I don't think that was the best one, if I believe on that. Actually, no, it was not the best one with the left on base percentage. But no, it's just really interesting to see that the Cincinnati Reds, everybody expect him to do not so well, and now they're just coming out firing all guns,
And, we'll see if that catches up to him. But they got a guy, like I said, Votto hitting 4 home runs, and then Suarez hitting 3 home runs, and Adam Duvall hitting 4 home runs as well. So, and, Duvall is hitting a 269 average, and Suarez is hitting a 389. Or, I'm sorry, a 362.
Yeah.
389 in his BABIP for the year.
And, he's keeping that on pace. Adam Duvall, you say he got 3 home runs. He dipped this week with having a 158 batting average, a 154 BABIP. But, of course, this is just a weekly basis. You're not always going to be, on your A game. There's going to be days that you're feeling like you're on your A game, but it just goes to your B game. And, of course, you have Joey Votto still hitting 350, 481, 700 on the slash line at 294, which is a bit below the BABIP rating. But then you look at his isolated power, and it's a 350. And he's had 2 home runs, 7 hits, and 5 RBIs. And really, if you look at it, too, if you go from the weekly perspective, Zach Cozart is really kind of the guy that they have him as number 1 of the week, but that's kind of set up by that's usually set up by WAR, how they do it on Fangraphs. But
yeah, he's coming in at a .9, but he's hitting a 405 average.
Exactly. And but what really set Votto and Cozart apart was they do have high walk rates, with Cozart having 20% and 18.5 for Votto for the week. It was the 7.4 strikeout percentage by Joey Votto compared to Cozart's 20%. So, I mean, that's a real major dip, and he's really, trying to put himself on base without, trying to swing and hack at the ball. But I digress.
Like you said before, it's Joey Votto raising his trade stock and getting catcalls from the
crowd outside of Phil's workplace. Well, workstation, I should say. Then the catcalls keep on going.
It's like they just can't get enough.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Lordy. Too many bloopers for us.
We're recording at night, which is not usual for us.
Exactly. Even though half to 3/4 of our podcasts are recorded at night because of our work. But anyways, I need to do something real quick because my stupid thing wanted me to restart. Anyways, the worst player that I chose was Billy Hamilton. It was during the week he was 167, 231, and 167 with a BABIP of 200. Of course, he's not going to bring any power. I mean, he's not a power hitter. He had a strikeout rate of 14.8, and he only had 4 hits out of 27 plate appearances. He did get 4 runs in and had 1 RBI. And, of course, with his speed, 2 stolen bases. But I don't think really anything else is going to happen with that. So, Phil, do you have any questions for me?
And no, I don't have any questions about the Reds. They're that surprising team at the beginning of the season. But as the season goes on, they'll even out. They don't really have the pitching or the hitting to really maintain that. And you could look at them to be sellers around the All-Star break and trade deadline.
Yeah, and just saying, we brought up Joey Votto many of times. He's actually really upping his worth to other baseball teams, really seeing that he could still play at a high caliber even though he's on a shitty team. And I shouldn't say shitty.
And, you could see him to be, it depends how the Red season goes, but, by mid-June, you could see them be one of the early teams to make a big trade with Votto to reamp their farm system. And, they got guys coming up and stuff, so.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
Reds are almost out of their rebuild. They're almost there. They just need to put a little bit of pitching together, a little bit of hitting, and they'll get there.
And no injuries, and they'll
Yeah,
be good. But of course, you can't
yeah.
always play out of those injuries. But anyways, now to the Milwaukee Brewers, or the Brew Crew, as I like to call them, and I think everybody likes to call them the Brew Crew. They went 5-2 this past week, winning the single game against the Blue Jays, and winning the 4-game series against the Reds, and winning the last 2 games against the Cubs. Their series with the Reds, I'm just going to go over the Blue Jays because that game, if I remember correctly, was more of a blowout than anything else. They outplayed the Blue Jays. They outscored them in every possible way, and the Blue Jays are just having problems, like you brought up in the last podcast. But anyways, in their series with the Reds, I could reiterate what happened with the Reds, how I said earlier, how the Reds were outscored in every possible category against the Milwaukee Brewers, but I won't. The only bad thing that they had left on was that they had left on 54 players on base during the series. But can you complain when they won the series? So anyway,
No.
exactly, and
A series wins. A series wins. A series win. Doesn't matter how it comes.
exactly, and the starters only gave up 5 walks out of 9 total during that series. So I mean, 2 thumbs up from me. And if I was a Milwaukee Brewers fan, I'd be trying to ride on that because it's just, the Brewers are right in the, they're like right where the Pirates are, but they're not overly too much where the Pirates could possibly overtake. But then again, now with Starling Marte out, I don't think that's possible for the Pirates. But anyways, back to what I was saying. In the 2 games against the Cubs, they had more hits with 20, more than strikeouts, that was 17, and players left on base, which was 14. And an interesting note, the Cubs did outscore the Brewers 13-12. On the pitching side, it was Nelson and Anderson's second go-around, and comparing the games before, they both did worse in their second games. 7 innings to 5 for Nelson, 4 hits to 8 for actually their averages. I just remember that. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, they both averaged 7 innings their first go around, 5 innings this time. They averaged 4 hits to 8 hits, 6 strikeouts to 4 strikeouts. And that was really the only things that I saw from that was really, I guess, flashy in a way, because you always want to talk about the pinpoints where they really have really dominated at certain spots. And like I said, they had more hits than strikeouts or players left on base, but that was kind of evenly matched. If I remember correctly, they won both games, like I said, but I think they were both close games. They weren't really any. They weren't just out of, I guess, exaggerated, ridiculous games, if I could speak. But anyways, batting this week, they averaged 4.9 runs, 7.6 hits, 2.5 walks, 7.1 strikeouts, and 8.9 left on base. Their slash line was a 254, 318, and 405, which rankings-wise was 9, 11, and 2, respectively. Their BABIP was a 272, which was ranked 19th. They had an isolated power rating of 275, which was first in the league overall, which actually I think was the only first in the league doing my calculations and looking everything over. And they had a 7.5% walk rate, which was in the lower half of the list, and a 21.3 strikeout rate, which was at the middle of the list at 14. And on the pitching side, they gave up 7 hits, average giving up 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 2.3 walks, 6.4 strikeouts, and less than a home run. But their ERA, they average a 3.54 ERA, a 3.449 FIP, a 7.252 strikeouts per 9, a 266 walks per 9, a 287 BABIP, and a 74% left on base percentage, which those rankings respectively go 12, 13, 22, 9, 19, and 15. So it's kind of correlation between the two outliers of the walks and K rate, walks per 9 and Ks through 9, that they're really centered right in the middle of the league.
And sitting right in the middle is never a bad thing. Like, you're not overly bad, and you're not outstanding either. You're middle of the pack. You're average, and being average in baseball is a lot tougher to do than most people think.
Exactly, and
especially as a team as a whole.
Exactly, and another thing too, it's like, hell, if you play average ball, you might get into the playoffs. So,
oh yeah, as a team, if you can hit above, because right now the team as a whole, their average is a little low. They're hitting 236, but their on base is 306 and 307, and their slugging is a 471. Granted, most of that slugging comes from Eric Thames, who was slugging at 959 with 7 home runs and a 19% strikeout rate.
Exactly.
I think his isolated power right now is a 551.
Yeah, during the week, just the slugging and the isolated power, his slugging is a 1.241, so he's over 1, and then his isolated power is a 759.
Okay.
So
dude's just being unreal right now.
Exactly. He has 6 home runs in the past week. In the past 7 games, he's had 6 home runs.
You can't account. You can't account for that to be the norm for him.
Exactly.
But if once a month if he could have a stretch like that, it's going to keep the Brewers in contention. As long as his 3 other weeks aren't just god awful.
Yeah, if he plays average ball, which would be 250, 260 batting average with a 300 on
2 or 3 home runs.
Yeah, on base. Yeah, 2 to 3 home runs. His on base percentage is a 3 to 400. Same thing with his slugging a little bit higher into the 4 to 500s. And the other thing too that we're not really talking about is not that he can hit the hell out of the ball, because he has those 6 home runs during the week, is that his walk rate is a 6.3, which is abysmal in a way. I mean, it's less than Orlando Arcia, which he has a 3.6 for the week. But his strikeout rate is a 9.4 for the week. So that's going to, if he can do that throughout the season, then he could be this dark horse to win MVP. Oh yeah,
no, who really paid attention to Eric Thames coming out of Korea after this year? After his first, I think, 3 or 4 years in the majors, he was below league average in everything.
Exactly. And maybe he just needed the KBO, which I'm actually happy about, because maybe people will watch the KBO more.
And, it's always good to, for certain players to go reset. And, maybe the KBO isn't as high as quality baseball, as in pitchers, as in major leagues. But going back there, and it's a little bit better than the AAA. So He can go reset against top tier talent. And in 2015, wasn't he the KBO major most valuable player? Hit a bunch of home runs. It was just, pretty much triple crown for the KBO.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why he went to the KBO too, for some of the listeners here that don't know, I think he had a bit of I think he had some PED issues or drug related issues nobody wanted him after that, and like you said, Phil, he was a below to average player, and then he was like, then he lost his interest in the game because nobody wanted him, but in order to get back to it, he played in the KBO to find himself back in the game and try to fall in love with baseball again, and then history happened, you know.
So, speaking of Eric Thames, pulling up this interesting article from SB Nation, Brew Crew Ball. If it ever gets loaded and lets me scroll down, it's looking like John Lackey might have made a little bit of comment about Thames potentially using PEDs right now.
Oh, God.
Here's the transcribed quote from John Lackey. You watch film on recent stuff and try to figure out a way, you know, to get them out. But, I mean, really, even the homer hit the other way, I mean, you don't see that happen here very often. That's kind of one of those things that make you scratch your head. That seems a little far-fetched. I don't know.
Same here, but you gotta be a little bit cautious with that, because, you know, we don't want a guy, you know, to go have all these PEDs and stuff, which would be really horrible, and especially for the Brewers organization. They put it. I think he's only
especially with Ryan Braun.
Exactly, and it would be the second go around. But, you know, they got this 1-year contract with him. They need something positive from all of this. So that's all I can really say. Is I'm glad that Eric Thames is back. He's playing in the major leagues, and he's really enjoying every moment in the league, and especially hitting those ridiculous amount of home runs. And that's why I chose him as the best player of the week for the team. And I think he's also MLB player of the week, if I'm not mistaken, in the NL. But the worst player of the team is Kurt Neuenhaus, because I want to say Kurt Neuenhuis, which he's a NFL commentator. Anyway, the Kurt Neuenhaus, if you look at all the stats, he played 6 games. He had 11 plate appearances. And, I mean, you could go with Kenon Broxton, which, I mean, probably should have. But,
you know, if you look at it, though, for the year, Neuenhuis has a 53.8% strikeout rate to Broxton's 45.7. And Neuenhuis is only hitting .043 average.
Exactly.
And has a exactly 0 BABIP.
Exactly. And I think that's the reason why that really caught me off, because it's just like, dude, you need to get some hits. And Kenon Broxton is actually hitting, even though his past week he's an .091 batting average. He at least has some hits. And I think Neuenhuis is actually, if I think of it, is fighting for position, but fighting to play in the field. But I could be wrong with that again. It's the Brewers. I don't pay much attention to the Brewers, but I should have this week. So, do you have any questions for me about the Brewers, or have we answered everything?
I would say we pretty much covered it.
Okay.
You know, Ryan Braun is doing Ryan Braun things, hitting .306, 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases. So,
exactly.
You know, combine him with Eric Thames, you know, Brewers might be an interesting team to watch, just to watch them two bat.
Exactly. So, our second to last team is the dreaded Chicago Cubs, the Northsiders, which, you know, the weird thing is I do know some people that are Cubs fans. They're actually nice, but I think it's just because they finally won the World Series. But I digress. But anyways, they went 3 for 4, splitting the games with the Dodgers and Brewers and getting swept by the Pirates. During their 2-game stint against the Dodgers, it wasn't the usual hit fest, only hitting 13 when they were averaging 25 hits per series. Even adding the game last week with the Dodgers, it was still only 19 hits. Lackey leading the series and week with 10 from his game, with 10 hits from the game. But after that, since I believe they won the series. After that, things came crashing down when they faced the Pirates. More strikeouts than hits for 25-23, and getting outscored 18-10. Hendricks and Arrieta had lackluster performances. Hendricks going 5 innings and giving up 6 hits and 3 earned, and throwing 3 strikeouts. Arrieta went 5.2 innings, giving up 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and giving up 2 home runs, which I was really surprised about when reading all the articles. But then in their last series, they split it with the Brew Crew, and the play was much better. 12 runs, 23 hits, 6 walks, 17 strikeouts. Of course, you don't want those high strikeouts, but it was better than most, and leaving 28 on base. And even the pitching was better. They gave up only 20 hits, 13 earned runs, 2 walks, 17 Ks, and 5 home runs. The only bad thing was Anderson going 3.2 innings and giving up 8 hits and 6 earned runs. So batting this week, the Cubs went 3.7 runs, 8.4 hits, 3.1 walks, 8.6 strikeouts, 16 left on base, and little less than 1 error. But the good stats, I guess, the normal stats, they were 254, 329, and 405. With the slash line, which respectively in the ranks, they were 8th, 9th, and 13th. They had a 319 BABIP, a 151 isolated power, a 8.5 walk rate, and a 23.1 K rate on the hitting side. On the pitching side, they only gave up 8.1 hits, 4.4 earned runs, 3.1 walks, and 7.9 strikeouts, with almost 2 home runs per game with 1.6. Their ERA was a 4.29, which ranked 22nd, a 4.57, which ranked 25th, a 7.86 Ks through 9, a 3.14 walks per 9, a 269 opponent's BABIP, which is 11th in the league, and a 73.2% left on base percentage, which is 18th in the league. So, any thoughts on that?
The Cubs are doing Cubs things. They're a game and a half back of the Reds, and if it wasn't for the Reds coming out as hot as they were, they would be at top of the division.
Exactly.
There's really no questions. It would be Cubs, Brewers, Reds, Pirates, Cardinals, somewhere in that order. But it will even out. They're having good pitching. Right now, look at John Lester. That has 18 innings pitched, a 24.3% K rate, 7.1% base on balls, and he has exactly 1 ERA. And he has a 90% left on base. And then you got Wade Davis coming in with 8 games, 7 innings, with a 0 ERA and a 100% left on base percentage and a 1.81 fielding independent.
Yeah, and actually this week he has a .24 fielding independent pitching, which is really good. And don't forget about Carl Edwards Jr., not the former NASCAR driver from Columbia, Missouri, but the pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. He also has a 100% left on base percentage, but it's not as impressive, of course, as your boy Wade Davis, because even though he has a 0 ERA, his fielding independent pitching is a 2.24. And we're not even talking about the the players that I thought were the best or the worst, which the best was Anthony Rizzo. Of course, Anthony Rizzo doing Anthony Rizzo things, if you want to say that. During the week, he had a 440, 548, and a 680 slash line, hitting 11 times, one of those being a home run,
And
scoring twice, and having 2 RBIs.
how long do you think him and Chris Bryant will lead the team in stolen bases?
I do not know, because I just saw that he had 2 stolen bases, and I'm pretty dang surprised because they have Baez, they have Russell,
Him and Chris
they
Bryant.
have Hayward.
Yeah, Chris Bryant and Rizzo each have 3 stolen bases for the year.
Which is crazy as hell. And Chris Bryant, I could see more than Anthony Rizzo, but just Anthony Rizzo is just far fetched in my opinion. But
Oh yeah,
I mean,
you don't a guy built like him playing first base. You don't see your first baseman stealing bases.
exactly. But the one thing that I will say before I talk about the worst player of the week, did you see Kyle Schwarber's perfect bunt?
Oh yeah, it was a very well executed bunt.
And I just wanted to punch the TV. But that's just me. All right. But anyways, the worst player of the week, not necessarily the worst player overall, was Ben Zobrist, which, very interesting because he's the utility guy that always has done well. Didn't he really have a really high on-base percentage during the playoffs in 15?
Yeah, he wasn't hitting necessarily a ton, but he was doing what Ben Zobrist did. Work the count, get a walk, or most likely getting a walk or striking out. He wasn't hitting he wasn't hitting the gaps, but it isn't the Ben Zobrist we're looking at right now with a 188 average and his on base is a 328. So he's still kind of doing that with a hot. He has a high 15.5% walk rate, which is second highest on the team. Which the only person above him is Schwarber.
And on my side, it's Ben Zobrist had a slash line of 208, 296, and 208. So I guess he's getting a little bit better. His BABIP was a 294. His strikeout rate was 25.9. His walk rate was 11.1. But it's not. It's something that I don't see from Ben Zobrist. If he was doing anything, he would be hitting more to average than anything else.
Yeah, and so we'll see if that's going to be able to turn around for him. Because if the Cubs want to keep him as their more or less everyday second baseman, he's going to have to do more than that, especially with Javier Baez right behind him.
Exactly, and that's another thing too, because
which having a Ben Zobrist on your bench isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, or Javier Baez in a way.
In a way, but Zobrist just offers that where he could play third, first, and anywhere in the outfield.
He's got that util going on, and that's what really has him over Baez. So, and also, Zobrist has the veteran capabilities over Baez any day of the week. So, no questions for the Cubbies.
No, not really. They're doing what they need to do to maintain their 2016 World Series, and hopefully looking like they'll be able to repeat too, the way the division's shaping up, especially the way the Pirates and the Cardinals are playing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Which, speaking of the Cardinals, they're the last team in the division in my rundown. And I don't know if I want to go with reality or fake news, because fake news would just be all hype and all finding some type of glory, or just being straightforward, which that's me. So you got to keep when you're talking about your teams, you always got to keep your fandom out of it and be real with whoever you're talking to, whether it's me talking to Phil or somebody else talking to someone else. You just have to be real with what's going on. So I have to be real with what's going on. The Cardinals went 3-3 this week, winning the lone game against the Nationals, getting swept by the Yankees, and then actually sweeping the Pirates at home in all three games, going 2-1, which was really interesting. I'm not going to talk about the Nationals game because the Nationals game, that was a blowout, 6-1. Leak getting the win out of that one. But against the Yankees, the pitching was dismal. They gave up 27 hits, 14 earned runs, 19 walks, but 32 strikeouts. 72 strikeouts would be phenomenal, and I probably would be saying other things. But the relief corps gave up the runs in the late innings to let the Yankees win. Having 27 strikeouts in the series on the hitting side did not help either. Against the Pirates, they were almost identical in both games and almost identical in the third game, but I did not add this into my rundown. But same run total, almost the same hits, low strikeouts, and low left on base. But on the pitching side, it was different, giving up 5 hits in one game and then 11 in the next, 6 strikeouts in one game, and throwing 3 in the next. But the one constant was the starting pitchers going 6+ innings, which was in dire need. Because if I remember correctly, during the Yankees series, Wainwright went 4 innings. Lynn, let me figure out if no, it's Wayne. I know it's Martinez went 5 2/3, I believe. Then Lynn, or whoever was behind Martinez, he went 4, and then Wainwright went like 3.2 or 4 innings. But just with that, it's just the pitching hasn't really come around. And then once the pitching for the Pirates still was, there was still some spots here and there. But watching the games, there was more. They were doing more, and maybe it's because they were at home finally. They can sleep in a nice bed, all that stuff. They'll feel comfortable. But besides that, it was just really. I hope they're on the upslope, but it was just really dismal play. Batting this week, they averaged 3 runs, 6 hits, 2.2 walks, 8.2 strikeouts, 10.7 were left on base as the average. Their slash line was a dismal, and I mean dismal, 189, 255, 326, which in the league would be 29th, and 28th.
Oh my gosh.
Horrible. Their BABIP was 221, which would be ranked 30th. Their isolated power, which brought them back up, was a 137, which was 16th. But then their walk rate was a 6.2, and their K rate was 23.4, which was 26 and 23 respectively. And it was just atrocious. Pitching, there was more of an upside to it. They averaged 8.5 hits, 2.8 earned runs, 3.3 walks, 8.2 strikeouts, under 1 home run for 0.7. Their ERA was a straight 3. Their fielding independent pitching was a 330. Their strikes per 9 was an 8.65. Their walk per 9 was 3.53. Their BABIP was a 320. Opponent's BABIP, I should say, was 324, and their left on base percentage was an 80.1. And let me just go through the rankings real quick. From each of those that I read, from ERA to the left on base percentage: 8th, 6th, 9th, 24th, 27th, and 8th. And I mean, the past few weeks as being a Cardinals fan was a
That's really
test.
rough to watch.
It's really rough to watch, especially being part of a proud franchise, a prideful team.
Hashtag best fans in baseball.
Yes, BFIB, hashtag BFIB, and if they really want to be just as joking wise, if they really want to be the best fans in baseball, they really need to support them during their dire times. They're really dismal, horrendous times. And watching the Cardinals, as a Cardinals fan, of course, as I tout always, it's been difficult. And I know I keep on saying that. But when you watch Adam Wainwright pitch, you expect greatness. You expect the old Wainwright. It's not there anymore. He doesn't have the speed, nor his control.
You don't expect him to
is gone.
only give you 13 innings in 3 games with a 7.24 ERA.
Exactly. And then the only bright spot out of this was Mike Leake, which I chose as the best player of the week. Mike Leake going he played in 2 games, went 13.1 innings. He had an ERA of .68. His fielding independent pitching was a 1.7. His K per nines were 5.4, 0 walks per 9, and his opponent's BABIP was a 262, and his left on base percentage was a 90.9. But it's just been really difficult. Lance Lynn, he's doing much better. He has a 0 ERA. Again, we have to look at it as a weekly thing. But it's coming so slowly, but I'm still worried.
And you got to look at too, Michael Wacha is at least returning to somewhat of his form with an 89.3% left on base, 2.41 ERA, and 18 innings, and only a 6.9% base on balls.
And speaking of, real quick, and he went for the season, for the first time this season, he went over 6 innings and pitched in the 7th. And I think he went 7 complete innings, I believe. Yeah, he did, actually. But it's just these really slow starts from the starters, really slow starts from the hitting. Just looking at it from, the weak perspective real quick, let's just go through it. We have Steven Piscotty. Really, during this week he's hitting a 286, but I'm pretty sure it's lower in the overalls. Then you have Randall Grichuk hitting 211, Dexter Fowler 120, Jose Martinez, which for some odd reason he needs to start playing more, because every time I watch him play, he actually does something on the field and does something hitting. He has a 455 batting average.
Can we talk about a quick note about Jose Martinez?
Yes, and I think I know what you're going to talk about, but I still want to hear it.
Okay, last year, he as a whole, he's played 887 games in 10 minor league seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he was in the Royal System, AAA Omaha Storm Chasers.
Mm-hmm.
No, not last year, 2015. Sorry.
Yes.
So 2 years ago. He set the record with a 384 batting average for the Pacific Coast League.
And not only that, but I'm pretty sure, from what I've heard,
he also led the PLC in on-base percentage as well.
Didn't he win the Triple Crown, though, in the PLC? I think he did. But it's just an oddity that, we could talk about this later with the Royals and bring up Jose Martinez. But from Jose Martinez, from Greg Garcia, those guys have been really doing well. Everybody else has been really abysmal. It's just really hard to watch. There was a point where Matt Adams was in left field. Left field, for crying sakes. I don't know how Matheny thinks that is the best way to put in Matt Adams. Matt Adams, you're only a first baseman in my eyes. Hell, you're only DH in my mind. Hell, I don't even think you're a part of the team in my mind, to be honest with you. But
That's
again,
like when the
that's
Royals
just
used
me.
to in interleague games, they used to put Billy Butler out in right field.
Exactly. And I actually said that I think it was in our Twitter group that he's really the Cardinals version of Billy Butler at Kansas City because he can't do crap. And I don't know why Mike Matheny thinks he can do it when he can't. It is over. In my opinion, he is done. Cut his butt out of the lineup. Bring in somebody from AAA like Paul DeYoung, which he can play, which he's a utility, but his main position is a third baseman. He could rake the ball. Hell, maybe just add somebody from AA like Jack Flaherty or Alcantara, which those are really good pitchers. Of course, you're not going to really see them pitch well in the majors, but I'm just saying that Matt Adams to me is a guy that we can just give up because he hasn't done anything besides losing 25
So,
pounds doing Pilates.
would you think Matt Adams is your worst player of the week?
No, that's the one thing. Because even though Matt Adams is really wretched, I do not have him as the worst player of the week because he only had 13 plate appearances and he's been playing half the games. He's only played 5 out of the
So
6.
who's coming in as your worst?
My worst player is Dexter Fowler. The reason why before today's game, he hit 2 home runs, which were the 2 runs to win the game.
I was gonna say he had 2 solo home runs today. So
The reason why
before today, what made him your worst?
Okay, let's go through this real quick. No stolen bases, no 2 runs, only 3 hits. Okay, that's the really minuscule stats. But here we go. He is known for his on-base percentage. He's currently, during this past week, 185. His batting average, 120. His slugging, even though he's not really a slugger, a 200. His BABIP is a 158. His strikeout rate is a 22.2, and his walk rate is a 3.7. And he's finally hitting the ball, but again, that's even a smaller sample size than my weekly pick, which is bigger in size compared to one game, but it's still a small sample size. But that's the reason why Dexter Fowler, he hasn't done what he's meant to do. And of course, you're going to have your ebb and flows with all of these, but he just hasn't done much, and the team hasn't done much. Randall Grichuk right now has the highest K rate at 40%. Right behind him is Mr. Matt Adams, aka Butler 2.0 in my opinion. Has a 38.5. So I mean, I just don't know what to do. I mean, hell, I could say Yadier Molina is a worse player, but I don't see him. And to be honest with you, I see him as an average player, so I'm not disappointed at what's going on with Molina. I'm just really disappointed with Dexter Fowler over Matt Adams, your Randall Grichuks, your Colton Wongs. I'm more mad about that. And hell, Aledmys Diaz was 0 for 15 before the day even started. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things going wrong with this team. And
Isn't it rough watching bad baseball for 1 year?
It is rough. All right. I know what you're going to say.
Oh, man.
I know what you're going. I see that grin through Skype. The grin is bigger than the Joker's grin. It is bigger than the room.
It's like I didn't watch bad baseball from the Royals for 10 plus years.
It is abysmal. All right. It is god awful. It's awful. All right. And I can see.
Well, yeah, no.
And I could
A
see
lin-
you smile from all the way from one wall to the other wall in this dang screen. All right.
Diaz right now is literally for the year coming in at a 0.0% base on balls.
Exactly.
Hasn't taken a walk.
That's his
How,
MO. All right?
like, how do you not take at least one? Like
Because
I could
he's
probably go up there and get at least one walk.
because he's young and he's not patient, and we need to learn patience at the plate.
Granted, I would be scared shitless being in the batter's box, but I could probably get at least one walk.
Exactly. And he's not even doing it. I could go on, but I'm not. Mike Leake was the best player, and I think if I did not bring it up, the reason why I did bring him as the best player, like I said, he played 2 games, he won 2 games, he had an ERA of .68. His left on base percentage was a 90.9. His strikeout rate was, well, strikes per 9 was 5.4, and his walks per 9 is a 0. So anyway, besides, and to be honest with you, as a Cardinals fan, not enjoying every moment of baseball and criticizing every moment, turning into as they say, a armchair general or an armchair manager in this situation. I've not really looked at the lovely standings, but I know that we're either 4th or 5th in the division. So
Right now, because you beat the Pirates today. I'm going to go top to bottom.
Okay.
Reds are 9-5, Cubs are 8-7, Brewers are 8-8, Cardinals and Pirates are tied at 6-9. But the Cardinals are still coming in with the highest playoff percentage is 31.2 at second highest. The Cubs are still coming up at 94.9.
Yeah, don't remind me of that. But of course, I chose them to win the division because I didn't have much confidence in the Cardinals winning the division. But anyways, so that is it of the NL Central. Just going an overview of it. Like I said earlier, I kind of did some more calculations with it, and I brought up that the Brewers had the number 1 ranking in one of their statistics, and all the secondary statistics. Well, the main statistics, your ERAs, your batting averages, all that stuff. I added those all together. Batting on its own, pitching on its own, then putting them all together and then dividing them by 2. And on the batting side, Cincinnati's first with a 161. And how I did the numbering was, of course, number 1 gets 30 points to, rank 30 gets 1 point. So that's how I did that. So Cincinnati was 161. Then Milwaukee with a 140, even though it seemed like they did better, but, being that top 10 team with the Reds, with those 2 6s, those 2 7s, and that 9 and a 5 ranked in in the batting really helped them out to be the number 1. Chicago comes 3rd with 136. The Pirates come 4th at 112. And then the Cardinals come in last with the grand total of 36. That's how bad the Cardinals have been playing. Just batting, period. I mean, pitching-wise, it's a different story. Cardinals take top spot with 104. Pittsburgh takes second with 102. Then Milwaukee has a 96, and they're third. Cincinnati is 4th with an 88, and the Chicago Cubs are last with a 77. But putting all those numbers together, it's Cincinnati first, Milwaukee second, Pittsburgh third, Chicago 4th, and St. Louis last. And it actually does show that you need to start playing ball, St. Louis, or I'm going to get angry and not buy any more outfits. any
Oh,
more
for
things.
for one for one season. For one season.
For one's, this is actually it's, if I had to look at it at a
I guess you
lighter
can count
side.
last year too because they didn't make the playoffs last
Yeah,
year.
but
So
again, that was just because they didn't win enough games, just 2 games over San Francisco. But
yeah.
anyway, I was just going to say that, trying to look at it on the bright side as a Cardinals fan, this might be the time where if they do suck, it will be good to get those bandwagoners out of the Cardinals family and
Oh, you
enjoy.
mean every single one of your fans?
I'm just giving you a death stare. But we have a proud tradition, all right? Family tradition. I think those are our power words that we use when we advertise our stuff. But anyway, no, the good thing is that we kind of need this to really focus on newer things. Like I've said before, with the Cardinals, with them having 2 of their rivals winning back-to-back World Series, they need to do something else than what they're doing now. They need to focus. They need to find better minor league players and focus on really developing those players, but also finding veterans that could really help. And I feel like it's been 50-50, where they've been able to find minor leaguers to play, and some of them can help, and they can find veteran players that can help too, but it's been more of a crapshoot. Like, I think Dexter Fowler has helped more than Johnny Peralta the last 5 years, and Fowler's only been playing for 2 weeks. So, I mean, that's just me, again, being critical. But what can I do, right?
Sit on the couch and judge.
Exactly. Put me in, Mazaylock. You shook my hand. Let me be the manager for the day. Win a couple games for you. Ooh, that's not good. But anyways, that is it of the NL Central, and we are going to take a long break for us. So, I think we're going to talk about our beers next. Talk about the crazy historical showdown, of course, that is the best so far that I have done. And then Phil will take over the AL Central. So this is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin.
One eternity later.
So we're back after 12 hours. Yeah, 12 hours, which is really funny, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right, Phil?
Oh yeah, and that's why you got to drink beer with coffee and in the morning.
Exactly. But not for me though, not for me today cuz I got a busy day ahead of me. So anyways, so the beers
You can be a responsible adult, I guess. I'll allow it.
Yay. I try to be a responsible adult even though I shouldn't be. But anyway. So now it's our lovely beer segment, and Phil, what are you drinking? What did you drink last night, and what are you drinking this morning?
Uh, well, last night I was drinking Ballast Point Sculpin, just a
Ooh.
regular variant of their IPA.
Ooh, yes. That's a delicious beer.
Very, very West Coast IPA.
Mhm.
Super hoppy. and everything. And then this morning, I went with again. By this point, Logboat should pay me. Drinking Logboat Brewing Company's Snapper IPA,
Mm-hmm.
which I've had on the show before, but this time it is brewed with Fretboard Coffee, which is a local.
So, what was that coffee company again? I got a little static from Twitter. I mean,
They
Skype.
are Fretboard Coffee in
Fret-
Columbia, Missouri.
Okay. And what do you know what kind of coffee beans they used in this IPA?
Um, Fresh roasted coffee beans from Fretboard Coffee. I don't know what kind of coffee beans they
Okay.
actually used.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes when they do I think mothers, I don't know if they specifically tell it on the label when they do the winter grind, but they do say, I think if you go to the place that they get the coffee beans from, they will tell you which type of bean that they use for the coffee.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure if I looked it up online and everything, the recipe would be online.
Exactly. Get you some clone recipes so you can make your own homebrew. Which we need to do a homebrew for the MLBeers. The
That
MLBeers
would,
homebrew.
I think that would be fun to do over like All-Star break. Uh, like brew it in June or something, and
Mhm.
then have it ready for All-Star break, and we can do a big segment over it.
Exactly.
And we could do,
Mhm.
we could do like Facebook Live. I hate to say Facebook Live, but we could do videos of us brewing it and then post it on our page.
Exactly. Or we can do a little bit of Periscope, which is the Twitter, live version.
Yes.
But
And
yeah,
I
what's
do
up?
have a setup if we wanted to do it in Richmond.
Ooh, who has a setup in Richmond?
Brother-in-law Levi.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yes. So he's like the only one. Yeah. So listeners, I want you to start homebrewing. It is a fun time. I did my homebrew at a home brewery store in Springfield, Missouri. I mean, there's places all around. If you go to Kansas City, I can't remember what their place is called.
They have a new one opening, not a new one, but they redid their building, Brew Lab, and then there's
Yes.
taps to grain or grains to tap or something like that too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a but there's a bunch of places that they can go in. They'll walk you through the process. They'll help you pick out your ingredients and your recipe, and just really help you out.
Mm-hmm. Where I went, they did help me with the ingredients, but I got to choose the recipe. So it's
There you go.
like I was talking to them about it, and really for everybody, they say the best recipe to start out with is your favorite style of beer. And I was like, all right, that makes sense. And he explained it more how like if you do it with your favorite style of beer, you know what you should get out of it. And if
Expect to
it's
taste it like.
and expect to taste. And so that's why I went with a wheat, and it was very, very delicious. A little bit of caramel malts, a little bit of honey malts.
Uh, did you did
Mm,
you can it or bottle it?
bottled it. They don't have a cannery place
Okay.
there. But that would have been cool if it was canned, but I don't know how it would be done with
Oh
that.
yeah.
So
I just love beer out of a can. It's just better. Just
yeah,
better.
and also zero it blocks zero sunlight. I mean blocks sunlight, so it doesn't get any
Oh yeah,
sunlight
and
in.
a whole lot less oxygen gets into it as it sits on the shelf and all
Hmm.
that good stuff too.
Exactly. So what I had last night, and I am not drinking this morning, is I had the Midas Touch by Dogfish Brewing Company, out of Delaware, if I'm correct. Um,
Yes.
and it really wasn't bad. It's a mead it's called an ancient ale, actually, and it's a mixture, as it said on the label, a mixture of wine, like it's wine and mead. So it had your normal barley. It had honey in it, grapes. saffron, and a couple other ingredients. And I thought it was really good. Definitely when you start when it's cold, you definitely get that nice, you get that strange mead taste that you always get. And mead is always hard to drink because of that taste. But since it had the little bit of grapes in it, you could really tell that drinking it when it's cold, it had that nice grape taste. So it was enjoyable, and it was enjoyable throughout the night, actually.
I've never been a big fan of mead, but like we talked last night, the only mead I've ever had was been honey based, and it's just something about it I just couldn't get behind it.
Yeah, I think that's where it kind of gets a little bit tricky. Again, it's the honey that really kind of goes in and out with it because it gives that weird taste. And I mean, to each their own. Some people can drink mead, some people can't. It's all about their taste buds. But really drinking mead, and I think it was kind of more of a micro brew, like somebody made it like somewhere, like I think I had it in back home in Richmond, and I think it was just some type of micro brew that some whiskey distillery made that's around our area, and they made it, and it was just, I think it was their first batch, and it wasn't really that great.
There is there's a distillery. It's out in the country. What are the Rayville?
Yes.
Rayville.
Yes. And
I had their rye whiskey. It was actually pretty good.
yeah, but it was a little bit too expensive for how much you were getting, but
Honestly, the only reason I bought it is because when I was out at 13 Stripes, I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is local. I'll try it. And then I just kind of ignored the price.
And sometimes you got to do that when you're buying alcoholic beverages sometimes. Like, just looking at something that looks really good, but then it's like, it's $10 for, a 12 to 16 ounce.
That's how I feel when I buy Ballast Point, because their Sculpin is usually anywhere between $12 and $14 for a six pack.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the single bottles, because some of them, they go from like $6 to $10, and that's usually your delirium tremens, which I love to death. I think
when I'm looking at just a 22-ounce bottle that's $12 or $11, I really have to think about it.
Yeah, that's a 22
because you're only getting
ouncer.
2 beers out of it.
Yeah, but getting that 12 ounce for $8 to $10 is it's a difficult.
Oh, yeah.
It's a difficult buy.
That's like when Founders, when they come out with their Kentucky breakfast stout,
which I have not had yet. This year's version of it. So,
okay, yeah, I was gonna say, if you haven't had it ever, it's a really good breakfast stout.
It really is, and
it's bourbon aged.
And actually the funny.
It's one of those.
What were you gonna say?
It's one of those 12-ounce bottles that some places will mark up to like the $6 and $8 region just for one bottle.
Exactly. And I bet you it goes crazy on the beer markets. But anyway, what's really funny is I'm actually drinking out of a Founder's mug for my coffee. They're normal breakfast stout mugs that they have, that they always give out.
I've been wanting to get one of those. That's awesome.
I actually have 2 of these, but I got these at while I was at a bar, and they were having a special on breakfast stouts, and they would actually serve the beer in the mug. So,
that's awesome.
And I think it's been their kind of promotional thing for quite a while. I know this past year that they went for a lower, wider mug than the mug that I have, and so
I was about to say, doesn't Mother's Winter Grind come with one too? Don't they have a little glass mug?
They have a glass mug, but it's not. But I haven't really been to a bar that, and I've been to many bars around here in the great city of Springfield, but I hardly ever see it in a mug. at the bars, but I think they do it at I think they do it at their brewery. But again, it would be more safe to go with plastic at a brewery where it's a workspace plus tasting room. But then again, I digress, and it could be different.
Oh yeah. Have you done the Mother's Tour at all?
No, I have not. That's the one thing that I've been wanting to do for a while.
I was down there in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I did the bus to Mothers through Central State,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty much like a little mini beer Olympics thing.
Mm-hmm.
Had trivia and different things you had to do, and there's a competition, and if you won first place, you would win a free case of Mothers a month for a year.
That sounds great.
I took second place.
A beer Olympics, and you got second place.
Oh yeah, no, there's a picture of me, and I doubt you'd have to search their Facebook for the past three years to find it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at the end, when they get like you, because we got trophies and medals and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and you could just tell how bloated I was from literally because like you pretty much had to have a beer in your hand the whole day,
Mm-hmm.
and we left Kansas City in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and we drank 2 coolers worth of beer on the way down.
Oh my God. Lordy.
And then we got there, and it was just nonstop. So by that picture they took, I just look super bloated and just wasted.
Super gone by that time.
Yeah. But I think I walked away with I got an early release of their MILF that year. I got 1 bottle of it,
Ooh, nice.
and before they released it, and then I got a bottle of their Love Factory. So it's not a bad deal.
Okay, so yeah, I don't think they make Love Factory anymore. Even in the tasting room, they don't do that. So
But
that's a rarity right there.
I got free beer and free food all day, so I can't really complain.
I wonder who catered that, because the food part, of course.
It was a taco bar. It was almost set up like a little Chipotle, but it wasn't Chipotle.
Okay, because I was about to say Chipotle does do catering, Qdoba does catering, maybe some local, oh my God, food truck. I'm trying to think of the dang word, but maybe a local food truck. They just didn't have their food truck with them and just did it all out. But hey,
Oh yeah, no, it was buffet style. So,
that's
but-
pretty cool though.
but at about halfway through the day at the brewery, I switched over to one of their yard beers that were only like 3% because if I was going to maintain, there's no way I could keep up with the 6 and 7%ers all day.
Yeah, those are they're very difficult in a way. Delicious, but very difficult if you're trying to get through the day drinking all of those. You probably would have got your second place medal face down on the ground. So.
Yeah. And I really can't even believe I won second place, but is what it is. I was really mad that I didn't win first place because I wanted that free case for a year, and they let you pick what case you wanted, so you could mix it.
Okay, that isn't that bad, because I was gonna be like, if you had to pick between the year rounds, I would have been kind of disappointed. It should have been like, this month you get this beer, next month you get another beer, this month you get another beer, and so forth. And if it hits the seasonals, you get the seasonal for that specific season and all that stuff.
Yeah, from what I understand, you had to choose between their year rounds and their seasonals, and you couldn't get their special releases. So you couldn't get like a case of MILF,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, because that's shit's gold. Excuse my language, but it really is. Like, just a little quick take. I was at a Brown Derby, which is a really big liquor store down here in Springfield, and I was talking to the cashier, and he's like, if you try to sell this on the beer market, it's like $50 for just a 4-pack. So.
Oh yeah, if you're selling it outside the Springfield, Kansas City, St. Louis market, yeah.
It's
And Mothers has upped their production of MILF in the past 3 years.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit easier to come by than it was in 2014 and 2013.
Exactly, and it's still dang good no matter what. So,
Oh yeah,
alrighty, are we done talking about beer? I'm not trying to rush anything, but
I would say so. We covered enough there.
yeah, we covered a lot. It was actually more expansive than usual. But people, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you're drinking. We want some questions so we can possibly answer them. We might not be connoisseurs, but at least we know what we're talking about when we're making beers, talking about beers, and all that stuff. Of course, you can email us at majorleaguebeers@gmail.com or direct message us at our Twitter at MLBeers Podcast. So, anyways, the historical showdown, the second part of the bottom half or the bottom inning of this podcast, was very intense. Of course, we chose the 1971 Pittsburgh Pirates with Willie Stargell, and I'm glad I still have my notes that I made. Willie Stargell, Roberto Clemente, and Bill Mazeroski, but Mazeroski was pretty much done at the time. He was more of a pinch hitter, while the fans chose the 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers, the only Brooklyn team to have a title, and they had Mr. Roy Campanella, which is really sad in a way because I think it was this season, after the 55 season or the 56 season, he got into a car wreck and couldn't play anymore because he was I believe he was paralyzed. And then you have the one and only Jackie Robinson, which it was interesting enough that he did not play in the historical showdown. Again, I don't mess with the lineups. The AI chose it, and he was more of a pinch runner. Then you had Pee Wee Reese, which he was he was second baseman, and all the guys that I'm talking about are Hall of Famers, of course. And then Duke Snider, which he was really rocketing in that series. I believe he had 5 home runs. Stargell had 6. Campanella, I believe he had 4 or 5 home runs. But all of those guys were Hall of Famers, and I have to say that the hosts won again. We're on a 2-game winning streak now. But I don't think I want to go much into it because this one, it was very close every game. There was some games where I think there was one game where you can consider it as a blowout. It was 6-1, I believe. But every other game, it was the margin of victory was 3 or under. So there was actually some games where they were very close. And this one was the first one to reach to a Game 7. So very, very, very intense Game 7, which I had to do which I did some commentary for. And as always, if you love video games, sometimes you get into it. And I mean, I got into it. So anyways, of course, the hosts 1971 Pittsburgh Pirates beat the 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers, and Willie Stargell was actually the MVP of the series. So I think that's all I'm going to say, because this one I really want our listeners, our fans to really watch, because it was just that spectacular.
And, we haven't had to read any tweets lately, so maybe our next set of prizes, if you all continue to vote like you do, we could up them a little bit.
Yeah, up the ante. Come on, people. We didn't get any comments or direct messaging of who you chose for the showdown. I kind of wish you all did that so we can actually possibly give you some prizes. Pick one out of a hat and just maybe you get a 6-pack of beer from either the Columbia area or the Springfield area. Just keep it local, because some people, we don't get logboat down here in Springfield, and do you guys get White River up there, or Springfield Brew Co.?
We don't get Springfield Brew Co. We get White River in Columbia.
Oh, okay. So, oh, ooh. I'm not a fan of Springfield Brew Co. But that's other things. And I'm guessing you guys get Piney River, of course.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because
They're pretty good.
yeah,
though.
they're good. They're not bad. And I think I still need to get their ridiculous amount of cases that they have left at Brown Derby, which they're like $4 for a 6-pack. And usually
There you go.
Usually they're like
That's not a bad
$10,
price.
So I definitely need to do that. So anyway, again, I'll reiterate, the 1971 Pittsburgh Pirates beat the 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers in the series 4-3 with Willie Stargell getting the MVP award. And I do believe that the Pittsburgh Pirates did outscore the Dodgers this time, unlike their actual 71 counterparts, where they did not actually outscore the Baltimore Orioles, which was to 24-23. So that's
which is pretty interesting stat line, because most of the time, if you think of a World Series winner, they're not getting outscored in total in 7 games.
Mm-hmm. And it's just really interesting, because I did see that stat before, but then I totally forgot about it until you brought it up. But also other facts, I'll just say real quick. Like I said with the Brooklyn Dodgers, that it was the only title when they were in Brooklyn, and actually the only title that Brooklyn has ever gotten throughout their whole, the city history, because they didn't have professional sports back then until 1900, I believe, or a little less than that. But also, with the Pittsburgh Pirates, they were the first team to field an all-black and Latino team. It was I believe it was September 6, 1971, when that happened.
I didn't know that, so that's really interesting and pretty cool.
Boom.
Robert Clemente definitely kind of led that charge, because wasn't he one of the first ones to give his interviews in Spanish?
I believe so, but I cannot. But I want to believe so, but I can't really confirm that, because I didn't really look up anything about that. But it was still cool to to know. I did know that they did field an all-black team, but also Latino team. Just a mixed team was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and what year did they field that team?
1971.
And if you think about it, Jackie Robinson was 1940s, right?
1947 was the actual year when he started.
Okay.
In the MLB.
47, so nearly 20 years later was the first time any major league team was able to field a completely non-white team.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always interesting. Always interesting. So anyway, again, I'll reiterate for the second time: the hosts 1971 Pittsburgh Pirates defeat the 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers in the series 4-3 with a dramatic Game 7 ending. And that's the reason why I want you all to watch it, because it was very, very dramatic.
What's our YouTube channel?
Our YouTube channel is, I believe, MLBeers Podcast. So, of course, after the show, I will post the link. Actually, I need to upload the video, but it shouldn't take long. But I will post the link on our Twitter and Facebook accounts. And if you want your opinion on it, just, if you feel like you want to say something about it, of course, go ahead, message us on Twitter at, MLBeers Podcast, or our email at majorleaguebeers@gmail.com. And also on the website. I do want to talk about, because I actually, on the website, I added a special tab called the Historical Showdown tab, and it talks about why we decided to do this in summary. And also, I have what I call the scorebook. So it shows every game that was done, who the fans chose, who were the home teams, and of course, who won the series. So, and right now, it's 2-1 the hosts, and we're on a 2-game winning streak. So, knock on some wood for that, because we want to keep on winning, of course.
Of course. Let's see how long we can keep it up.
Exactly. So anyways, without further ado, let's talk about the AL Central. Lead the way, Phil. It's going to be an interesting one.
It is, because 4 of the 5 teams are tied at 500, and the team in the league right now is the Detroit Tigers with a 8-6 record.
Okay.
And that's where I'm gonna start off with the Tigers.
Okay.
And since April 13th, going back generally about a week, they have let up 44 runs in just that time. And two of those games, Jordan Zimmer was the starting pitcher. That first game on April 13th, they allowed 11 runs. And then his game last night, he let up 8 runs.
Ooh. That's not good.
No, it's not good. Not getting off, not be able to maintain. And in those 6 games, they've only scored 30 runs. So they've been outscored by 14 runs in the past week.
That's not good for the Detroit Tigers when they're in a bit of a situation where it's they go all in or fire sale at July. So.
Oh yeah, because if you look at their roster, who they have, that's getting the majority of their starts. You got Ian Kinsler, Cabrera, Jose Iglesias, Justin Upton, and James McCann, Andrew Romine, and Tyler Collins and Jacoby Jones are taking up most of the starts.
Mm-hmm. And this team,
at fielding positions, of course, they have Victor Martinez at DH.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this team, this is probably one of the teams that I had really trying to contend with the Indians, because of course I chose the Indians to win the division. But with the team like that, this team should contend to win the division, or at least contend to be in the playoffs. But it's just really going to depend on those guys that you brought up, because Ian Kinsler was part of Dodger talks before they signed Logan Forsythe. They were thinking of maybe giving up Miguel Cabrera for prospects, and of course all these trades that were going to happen are going to be high-profile top 30 organization prospects. But with that, my question is, if you're done with everything you wanted to say, are you? I don't want to jump the gun real quick.
Well, yeah, no, you can. No, go ahead and ask your question. Then I'll get into the couple of players that are, one, performing well for them, and then I'll talk about a player that's not really living up to what he needs to be.
Okay, so my question is this just going to be an anomaly where they just, they streak for a while and then just falter back to where they should be, or do you see this continuing throughout the season? And I know it's very short, very small sample size, but sometimes it can go all the way. So,
in the 14 games they played, you can look at this. Their batting, they as a team, they're hitting .232 with 18 home runs, 421 slugging, a 278 BABIP, and a 320 on base percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So the low batting average and their isolated power is at 189, and they're striking out 24% of the time and only walking 10.5% of the time.
Okay.
And they're like Miguel Cabrera, they're high walk guys. He's only walking 15.5% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at their batting, it seems like they might be one of those streaky teams.
Okay.
Who are going to need. I hate the word need to streak, but because it sounds like some dude in a trench coat running around.
Need to streak. Hashtag need to streak.
But what's really going to hurt them right is their starting pitching right now. Their
Mhm.
combined starting pitcher ERA is a 4.23,
Ooh.
and their bullpen ERA is a 6.75.
Ugh, not even close. Not even
No,
close.
but what's really hurting them is their bullpen ERA
Mhm.
is pretty much three guys. William Cavillas,
Yeah.
he has a 1/3 of an inning pitched, but he has 108 ERA.
Mhm.
And then they have Bruce Rondon. He has 1.1 innings pitched, a 40.5 ERA. And then Anibal Sanchez has 9 innings pitched with an 11 ERA. And Kyle Ryan with 4 innings pitched and an 8.31 ERA.
Hmm. So it's just sounds like they're not doing so well with just their three relievers.
No, and their starting pitching, Jordan Zimmer, like I said, he brought up, he pitched 2 of the games where they lost this past week, and
Mhm.
his ERA is a 5.94, and Justin Verlander's is a 5.71.
Yeah, so it does sound like they do need a streak to keep things going.
Yeah, they can maybe afford to lose 4 or 5 in a row if they can turn around and win 6 in a row and maintain that close to 500 or a little above 500 average.
All right, all right. So,
But I just really wanted to talk about one player that's really not getting a whole lot of playing time, but he's hitting really well is Alex Avila.
okay.
In 6 games and 17 plate appearances, he has two home runs, a 23.5% base on balls, a 29.4% K rate, a 615 isolated power, an 833 BABIP, a 538 average, 649 on base, and a 1145 slugging, and a 384 WRC plus.
Ooh, that's really good. And so I know he's catcher, so who's taking that spot? Cuz I'm trying
James
to.
James McCann
Okay.
with 3 home runs, a .048 BABIP, and a 133 average.
Ugh.
And he's just above the 100 average of WRC plus with a 101.
Ugh. That doesn't sound good at all.
And who's to say that if Alex Avila started getting regular playing time, his numbers would come back down to earth? But
Mhm.
I feel like if you're the Tigers, you want to go with the hot hand, and in just 6 games and 17 plate appearances, Alex Avila is that.
Maybe they're trying to save his knees for later. And also McCann is a younger guy, so I kind of
Well, yeah,
do see
McCann's
that.
27, Avila is 30.
Yeah, so I kind of see that happening with that team, but anyway, so do you expect him to
And
keep
that's really,
going or just
no,
falter?
I expect him to be again that fringe three, maybe 3 or 4 team in the division, fighting. Depending on where the rest of because the White Sox, again, will probably be at the bottom of the division just because of where they're at, and then
Mhm.
Cleveland's at first spot. So that
Mhm.
fourth through second spot is really up for grabs between the Twins, Tigers, and Royals.
Okay. Okay. So, you said you were done. You said everything about the Detroit Tigers. So, who's your next team?
My next team, well, I was just going to work my way down through their division standings where they're at, but when
Mhm.
you have 4 teams tied for second place with a 500 record, it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to pick where to go.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to move over to the White Sox.
Okay. Tell me about these
And
White Sox.
in their last 7 games, they're 4-3. They've only let up 12, 15, just about 25. They've scored about just 25 runs,
Mhm.
and there seems like they're getting good pitching out of. Well, Katana lost 0-6. James Shields is doing all right. He's like his 3 starts. It looks like he's only let up 2 runs, which is a nice progression from where he was last year.
Mhm.
But looking at them as a whole, like I said, they're 4-3 the last week. And if this would load up, just looking at their overall starting pitching for the last since the beginning of the season, each starter's had 3 games started except for Dylan Covey, and they're coming in at a 3.94 ERA, a 5.16 FIP, and they're coming in exactly at a 0 WAR. But they're getting really good. It looks like they're getting good starts out of James Shields. Like I said, he is a 1.62 ERA, and Derek Holland and Miguel Gonzalez both have sub 2.90 ERAs. Derek Holland's at a 2.16. But what looks like what's hurting them, and there's big trade talks with the Astros about getting Jose Quintana. He's coming in with a 6.75 ERA.
Yeah.
And he's only striking out batters 17.5% of the time, and he's having a little bit of a home run problem. He's letting up 2.08 home runs per 9, and his left on base is 68.4, while James Shields' left on base is 100%.
And I finally got the stats up real quick, and I'm looking at it, and it's just, you bring those up. You bring up James Shields, which he's doing spectacular. Then you have Jose Quintana that's doing less than subpar of what he should be doing. And the big thing that I'm looking at here out of the two is that, they have really good K per 9s, which Shields has an 8.64 and Quintana has a 7.27. But then you look over to the next stat, which is their walks per 9, and it's just really cutting that K per 9 in half. Shields with a 5.4 walks per 9, and Quintana having a 4.67. So that's gonna it really is almost counterintuitive in a way.
But what's really helping them is their bullpen right now. Their overall bullpen for the year has only a 9% base on ball rate with a 1.41 ERA and an 89.7% left on base.
Yes, and really who's been helping out is Mr. Zach Putnam, which he's pitched 8 innings and he has a K per 9 of 10.13, 0 walk per 9, and a 0 ERA. And, of course, the other trade talk guy, David Robertson, with 0 ERA, a 3.18 walks per 9, but an astounding 17.47 Ks per 9. And don't forget about Tommy Conley, I guess is how you would say. Conley? Conley?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And, of course, I do not know the phonetics of that, or Mr. Anthony Swarzak. I think it's Swarzak.
Swarzak sounds better.
Yeah, because it looks very Eastern European. But you talk about them enough with me because I've already talked about the NL Central. So,
well, you bring up guys like that, and with a somewhat struggling starting rotation, the bottom 2 with Quintana and Covey, if their bullpen can come in and keep pitching like they are, if Quintana and Covey can get them to 5 innings with the lead, it's very promising for the White Sox to be able to maintain that. And, as one reason why they're on a 4-3 run in the last 7 games. Also, if you look at their best hitter as Avila Garcia.
Oh,
yeah.
Avisel Garcia.
There you go. If you look at
that's
him,
the one name I know from the Chicago White Sox that I can definitely say with confidence.
If you look at him, he has 3 home runs, 4.23 average. He almost has that 1 WAR. He's at 0.9. He has a 5.14 BABIP, a 4.83 on base, and a 6.45 slugging. And he has a somewhat high strikeout rate with a 20.7%. But if you look in contrast to the highest hitter, Matt Davidson, he has 3 home runs, but with a 47.2% strikeout rate. But he's still batting .324.
Yeah, which is really odd, but I mean,
It
hey,
is.
if you can get that nice, I guess that nice high average, but can strike out a lot, it's either boom or bust with him. And looking at his RBIs real quick, he has 10 with 3 home runs. So
He's just not hitting solo home runs. He's hitting with runners on base. So, but as a whole, the team though only has a 217 batting average.
hmm
So for them to be able, if they're going to be able to maintain anything, they're going to need to get that batting average up to at least league average of 250, 260.
hmm yeah,
They can't have, they can't be batting guys like Todd Frazier. He's only played 8 games, but
mhm.
he's batting a 111 with 1 home run, 1 stolen base, and a .095 BABIP and a 38 WRC plus.
So if that is that everything? Did you talk about your best and worst player from the teams?
Well, I just kind of talked about I talked about Garcia, talked about
Mhm.
Davidson, talked about Frazier. I'm not really, I guess I'm not really picking a best and worst player.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of hitting on the players that are performing and
Okay.
the ones that aren't performing.
Okay. Yeah. So you're going wide range while I'm being nitpicky because I like to be nitpicky.
Hey, it works though.
Exactly. And I guess my question, real quick, is that with the relieving core doing so well and everybody that is doing subpar, could you say that at the trade deadline, if they're still, officially in the building mode, could they still be going for that, still going for David Robertson and not worrying about anybody else?
No, if you're looking at wanting to trade the relief core, you know, bullpen pitching is always valuable late in the season, especially when you got guys like Robinson, Putnam, and Swarzak.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 3 guys, even what is his name, Tommy Cadneal?
Wait, hold on.
What
Oh,
did we decide?
Keneal. I'm going with Keneal.
Okay,
'Cause
that's what I went with. So
that
Cadneal,
sounds more correct.
and you even got Dan Jennings coming in with 5.2 innings, a 20% K rate, and only 5% walk rate, with a
Mhm.
100% left on base and a 159 ERA.
Mhm.
They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 5 guys with 5+ innings and 3 of the 5 have a 0 ERA, and the other 2 have a 159 ERA. But then they got 2 guys like Michael Yona
Mhm.
and Nate Jones. They each have 6.1s innings pitched, but they also have a 284 and a 426 ERA. So they only technically have 2, not even 2, 1 bad bullpen guy in Nate Jones.
Mhm.
But even then, he has an 83% left on base, 17.9% K rate, but that's counterintuitive when he has a 17.9% base on ball rate. So
All
he's
right.
walking and striking out the same amount of guys.
All right. Yeah, I see that with the 7-Eleven and 7-Eleven K per 9 and
Yeah.
walks per 9. So with that ending the Chicago White Sox, who's your next team?
I'm going to move on to the Minnesota Twins,
Okay.
who in the last what is it, 6 games, they're 2-4, but
Mhm.
they've scored 24 runs and they've let up 24 runs.
Okay.
But they started off the season really hot with a 4-game winning streak, sweeping the Royals and
Mhm.
winning their next game after that. And looking at what's kind of faltering for them, if you look at Phil Hughes and Mejia
Mhm.
and Kyle Gibson, Phil Hughes has a 5.40 ERA for the year. Mejia has a 4.05, and Kyle Gibson has a 6.91 ERA.
Mhm. I see that.
So, yeah, but their bullpen isn't doing bad. Bullpen as a whole for the year has a 2.64 ERA, and I got Brandon Knitzler, their closer,
Mm-hmm.
with 6 innings pitched, 100% left on base, and a 0 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Taylor Rogers, Tyler Duffy. Each one of those guys have a 0 ERA. And then the only one that's really there's two guys in the bullpen that are really struggling is Justin Haley and Ryan Presley. Both of them have a 4.5 plus ERA.
Okay.
And then if you're looking at who's hitting well for them, you're gonna have to look at Robbie Grossman, which is a name I didn't think I would ever say, who is doing that well on the Twins when you got guys like Kepler, Sano, uh, Danny Santana, Eddie Rosario, and Brian Dozier.
Mm-hmm.
But Grossman's coming in with a 333 average, a 393 BABIP, 489 on base, a 528 slugging, and a 193 WRC plus, which leads the team, and a .6 WAR.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm looking it over
So
real quick, and it's just like you expect probably Dozier to do well because he was pretty much the team leader last year, and then you're finally expecting Byron Buxton and Miguel Sano coming out for their sophomore seasons, or
and
yeah.
Sano's coming in with 4 home runs, and Brian Dozier has 2 home runs and 5 stolen bases, which leads the team.
Mm-hmm. And
which is really odd to see Brian Dozier with 5 stolen bases already, but.
Mm-hmm. And it was odd just to say a little quick thing about Robbie Grossman. It reminds me of former Florida quarterback and Chicago Bears quarterback Rex Grossman, and I was like, oh my God, Rex Grossman is actually the first Tim Tebow. And then I was like, oh, it's not him, so it's all good. But
yeah, and looking at Robbie Grossman as a whole, it looks like he made it up with the Astros in 2013, 14,
mm-hmm.
and 15. And then he plays for the Indians last year in 2016 in AAA, and then made it up with the Twins last year for 99 games.
Mm-hmm.
And ended the year with a 280 average and 11 home runs, 37 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. So he's looking like he could be a type player that hits for a high average, gets on base, but just isn't going to steal a lot of bases for you,
mm-hmm.
which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to have that high average and hit 10 to 15 home runs, having 9 to 16 stolen bases would just help him.
Yeah, exactly. And, for me, it's odd to see Brian Dozier with 5 stolen bases when they have Buxton and Sano capable. Well, Sano not much, but Buxton and really.
And then the guy they went out and got, Jason Castro, the old Astros catcher.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming in with he only has 1 home run, but he's hitting 257 with a 409 on base percentage. He has a 20.5% walk rate.
Yeah, and I don't and really if you've watched Jason Castro's career, you're not really expecting him. You're expecting him to go average, but you're really expecting him to go with pitch framing, and that's what really the Twins needed with their pitching core.
And if you could look at it, look at Irvin Stanzana at the start of his year. He has 22 innings pitched, a 100% left on base, and a .41 ERA.
And I don't have last year's numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that is a lot better than last year.
Oh, yeah, I can pull it up right now. Looking at it, last year, he finished the season 7-11
mm-hmm.
with a 740 K per 9,
mm-hmm.
and his ERA was a 3.38, and his left on base was a 74.1.
Okay, so it's upgrade. It's an upgrade more than anything, not a full reboot, but definitely an upgrade with that. My question is, again, it's small sample size early in the season. Do you see them still going on pace to contend for the division, or just again falter during the season?
just looking at their hitting as a whole and their pitching besides Santana, I don't see them doing anything better than third or fourth in the division. So
Okay.
that's just kind of where they're at. Nothing too surprising. They'll hit some streaks to where they win maybe 6 or 7 in a row, but then they'll turn around and win 2 of 5 or 2 or 6 or something like that.
Gotcha. Anything else for the Minnesota Twins?
Nope, as long as you don't have anything.
I only have one question. That's all I get to ask sometimes. I'll say my little tidbits about some player, but that's just me. So, anyways, done with the Minnesota Twins. Who's your next team? Your fourth team?
Moving on to the Cleveland Indians, and they're
Ooh.
3-3 of the past week, but they have scored 41 runs as they've only let up 34.
Okay, so that's
So their
much
offense
better.
is coming forward a little bit more, and that's in big part to Lindor, Ramirez, and Lonnie Chisenhall.
Well, and don't forget about your
But
don't forget about your boy Edwin Encarnacion. I mean,
he only has 2 home runs and a 212 average, and he's striking out 33.3% of the time.
and that's why he should be only DH, which I believe he is.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, he's not playing much for space. But looking at them, the players that they want to be doing well, they're young players, Lindor, Ramirez, they're doing exactly that. Each of them have 4 home runs. Lindor's hitting 351. Ramirez is hitting 364. They each have a 415 on base, 684 slugging for Lindor, and Ramirez is a 654. Lindor is coming in with a 202 WRC plus, as Ramirez is coming in with a 196 WRC plus, and Lindor is leading the team in WAR with a 1.1, which his defense helps him out there a lot.
And I think another player that you brought up in a couple seconds ago was Lonnie Chisenhall, and he's putting up almost the same numbers as Jose Ramirez, which
Yes,
that's unseen of from him being really underperforming last year in a way.
And so far, he's only played 6 games with 21 plate appearances. He hasn't taken a single walk, but he's only struck out 4.8% of the time. And he's coming in with a 350 isolated power, 294 BABIP, a 350 average, 350 on base, 700 slugging, and a 196 WRC plus.
And that also shows how diverse that outfield can be.
Oh yeah, and you look at a guy that they kind of went out and got, Austin Jackson, last year. He's with the Tigers. Before that, he was with the Mariners, and he was kind of that Gerard Dyson prototype. Type. He's going to be that leadoff 9th hitter and have some speed behind him. But right now in 7 games, he's only hitting 222 with no stolen bases. But he is turning that around with the 364 on base percentage.
So my question is, if that's everything you wanted to say, my question is, they've kind of faltered through the first part of the season. Now they're revving up to, finally getting all cylinders going. Could you just see them playing just 500 ball, keep it close in the division, or are they just going to switch gears and just run away with the division as of right now?
I think as of right now, I think at some point they have the opportunity to switch gears because you got Lindor, Ramirez, Brantley, and Encarnacion. You have those 4 guys that could really carry it all. Like, not 100% carry the offense, but they can provide enough of it as if the other guys can be league average or maybe just a little bit worse. They'll be fine. But you got to look at their starting and relief pitching. You got Salazar, Carrasco, Trevor Bauer, and Josh Tomlin are definitely struggling a little bit to start the season.
Oh, yes.
Bauer coming in with an 8.44 ERA and Tomlin coming in with 11.68. Even Corey Kluber is struggling just a little bit in his first 3 starts. It's 3 starts, so all these numbers are going to be a little inflated until their fifth or sixth start when things start to even out. But he's coming in with a 6.38 ERA, and as a whole, the starting pitching is a 5.86 ERA with a 63.9% left on base. So between Tom and Bauer, they're struggling to keep guys on base.
Already.
Already. But then you turn around and look at their bullpen, and when you go Cody Allen, Andrew Miller, Boone Logan, Brian Shaw, and Zach McAllister, the only one that's struggling right now is Brian Shaw with a 5.14 ERA. But then you turn around and have Andrew Miller, who's pitched the second most innings in the bullpen, with a 100% left on base and is still 0 ERA.
And also Andrew Miller defining a new role in baseball, being the long reliever, even though he has the stuff to go a single inning and is capable of going maybe 4 to 5 innings if possible. I mean, we haven't seen that yet, but he is capable of doing that. And maybe right now he's doing so well, like you said, he has a 0 ERA, 100% left on base percentage, a 10.29 strikes per 9, and a 1.29 walks per 9. We could see a lot more of him in the future.
Speaking of their walks, the bullpen as a whole is only walking 7.8% of their batters, and they're leaving 75.6% of the batters on base.
Interesting. So, if you're done with the Cleveland Indians, and I'm going to take a wild guess that your last team is the Kansas City Royals, right?
Yes. And in their last 6 games,
hold
they're
on
5-1.
One second. Are you going to rant and rave like I did last night about the Cardinals, or you just going to go straight up talk stats? Because I want to get ready for this.
It might be a little bit of both. Like, obviously, there's a lot of positive things going on with the Royals right now, especially if you look at what Jason Vargas is doing. And, like I said, their last 6 games. Because at the beginning of the season, they got swept by the Minnesota Twins. Then they turned around and won 2 out of 3 at Houston. Then they lost 2 or 3 against Oakland. And then they turned around and swept the Angels, and then they've taken 2 of 3 from the Giants. And the last 2 games have gotten superb pitching from Jason Hamill and Jason Vargas, both of them taking no-hit games into the 4th inning.
Wow. That's really good. Sorry to stop you real quick, but that's astounding, going no-hitters into the almost middle innings of the games.
Yeah, and the surprising guy so far for the team has been Jason Vargas. This is coming off his first full season of coming back from Tommy John surgery at 34 years old. And he's coming in right now with a 93.8% left on base. He's only walking 2.7% of his batters, a 31.1% K rate, and a .44 ERA. And I think last time I checked, the starting pitching staff is leading the AL with a 2.07 ERA.
I actually, hold on real quick if this shows up. Oh my Lord, come on, internet. But I think they're actually leading the league, too, with their ERA. And if I can get that up real quick.
Yeah, because they only have 2 guys above a 2 ERA with Ian Kennedy. Even his ERA is not bad. It's a 2.37, and Jason Hamill's the only one with a 4.6. Danny Duffy with a 1.8, and Nathan Carnes with a 1.54.
They probably starting pitching-wise, they are probably the best. But since I have fan graphs and I did all instead of just picking out the starters or relievers, the Royals are actually they're 5th with a 3.24 ERA.
Overall, so that includes their relief pitching? Okay. When you have a complete staff with a 3.24 ERA, you're doing something right, at least turning it around.
And I mean, above them, the gap is very close from above. The Dodgers have a 2.88, Twins have a 2.98, the Yankees have a 3.02, and the White Sox have a 3.03, and then it's the Royals. So, I mean, even though it seems like the gap between those are .40 to .20, that's still good enough to be in fifth, you know.
And going into the season with the bullpen that is unlike the Royals bullpens of late,
Mm-hmm.
where they really only have that one shutdown guy in Herrera.
Mm-hmm.
They thought the beginning of the year they're going to get that out of Matt Strom. Matt Strom struggled mightily.
Mm-hmm.
He came in with he played 3 games. He has a 1.1 innings pitched, but in that one inning and 1/3, he has a 42.9% walk rate, a 34.9% left on base, and a 47.25 ERA.
Yes, and then the guy that kind of really substituted him out, Jacob Junis, he's done phenomenal. I think he went back down to the minors, but
he got sent back down. But his one inning, he came in, didn't let up a run, he didn't let up a home run. He did walk a couple guys,
mm-hmm.
but didn't let anybody around. So, there's promise to where if Strom can't really get it together, or in his first appearance down in AAA, Strom did well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just overall getting his mechanics back in order, getting on top of the ball, being able to keep the ball down in the zone, and he can help bridge the gap to Soria, which last year no one would really expected Soria to do how well he's doing this year. He's coming in with 8 innings pitched, 100% left on base, and he still has a 0 ERA.
Which is, really, to be honest, kind of weird because, like you said, last year he just stumbled and faltered. He fell everywhere he went. He just wasn't good at all.
And that was since the beginning of the year too. Starting off the 2016 season, that's just how he started. It just wasn't Soria-like.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a bad season. And this year, maybe it looks like he has his mechanics in order and could really stabilize that 8th inning. Or what I would like, this is my little bit of rant, would like to see Yost do is quit using Soria and Herrera primarily in the 8th and 9th inning.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a need for them to pitch the 6th or 7th inning, let them pitch it.
Mm-hmm.
Bridge the gap. Don't go into the 8th or 9th inning losing or winning by 1. Why not keep that 2 or 3 run lead in the 7th or 6th inning?
Mm-hmm. At least that's a better.
And I think that's what they were hoping. I think that's what the Royals were hoping Matt Strom could be for them, because he's the type of reliever who could go 2 to 4 innings. Because down in the minors he was a starter.
Yeah. And also, I was going to say that's probably a better rant than my almost 20-minute rant from last night about the Cardinals and Matt Adams. But I guess that's a good problem to have with what you're saying in a way. Switch up the relief corps and all that stuff. So, is that everything that you wanted to say about the Royals?
Well, I just wanted to talk about a couple of hitters.
Yeah, go right on ahead.
Not going to talk about Eric Hosmer, because if I wanted to talk about Eric Hosmer, I would talk about hitting ground balls 60% of the time.
And we just would keep this podcast going.
Yeah. And so, 3 guys I really want to look at. You want to look at Moustakas and Perez. Each of them have 5 home runs. And they're both hitting for a high average, both above 300, have above a 600 slugging, have above a 320 on base. And Perez is coming with a 155 WRC plus, and Mike Moustakas is coming with a 171 WRC plus. But the best hitter on the team right now is Lorenzo Cain.
Okay.
Hands down. If it will scroll down, he is coming in. Oh my gosh.
Okay, let me take this over real quick because I have it up. Right now, his slash line is a 347, 467, and 408. He's pretty much tied with his walk and K rate at 18.3. His BABIP percentage is a 447, and his weighted runs created plus is a 154, which is actually 1 point away from Salvador Perez, but Mike Moustakas takes that lead right underneath Whit Merrifield, which he's only had 9 plate appearances. But why I say
he hit one home run last night, so that has a lot to do with it.
Exactly, and the only reason why I say Moustakas is because he's had more plate appearances than Whit Merrifield. So
yeah, and just looking at what Lorenzo Cain's able to do, I think he already has 11 or 12 walks, and on top of that, he turns around and he has 5 stolen bases.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that at all. So
nope, not at all.
So if that's everything about the Royals, I guess my question is...
Yeah.
My question is, we have Alex Gordon going 196 at the moment, and a BABIP of 256, which is abysmal, and pretty much almost the same thing with Eric Hosmer. Is it better for the Royals? I know the Royals, I think this is Alex Gordon's second year on his 4-year deal, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
But the question is, with Eric Hosmer being a free agent this year, are you seeing a better chance that the Royals will keep him if he still stumbles with beyond the going on with the season? Or are they just not going to try at all, getting contracts with him?
Well, it depends how he does. If he keeps up the pace he's at right now with a 204 average and a 60% ground ball rate, he only has 1 home run, and his on-base percentage is a 259, and his WRC plus is only 49. So if he somehow maintains that stat line, then there's a very good possibility that the Royals could, and even probably be best for him, is to get a 1-year contract with the Royals and kind of maybe see if he can bounce back and then go from there. But if he's able to hit 280 and get his home runs up to 20, then no, I don't think the Royals will be able to have much shot to really re-sign Hosmer, which at this point I'd rather keep Moustakas.
All right. Even though Moustakas seems like he is bigger than I'm used to seeing him, but
yes, he is a little bit. He appears to be a little bit bigger, but Moustakas is the type of guy. If you sign long term, you got a guy like Cuthbert and Hunter Dozier who could play third base. Moustakas could make that shift over to first base,
and I don't think that would. I don't think that would really hinder him either, because first base role is kind of third base in a way, and I say in a way only because the first
and he would make it
is part of every play. So,
and he'd make a good DH option as well as time goes on. So better than Hosmer, because Hosmer just he hits the ball on the ground just too much. But the interesting storylines you're going to see, just because I follow the Royals more than anyone else, you're going to see if Raul Mondesi really can't start hitting, you're going to see Whit Merrifield and Christian Colon getting a lot more starts at second base. And depending on when Soler comes back and plays right field, you could see Whit Merrifield down in right field and left field too, giving Gordon days off. Because before Merrifield was called up, he had 4 home runs down in AAA. 3 or 4, I don't know.
There you go. So we do. So
Merrifield is looking like a guy who wants to prove himself to be able to play full time.
And right now, it seems capable that he will be able to do that if some of the bigger guys of that lineup go down.
Aren't producing. Yeah,
exactly. So if that is keep on going.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's about it for the Royals.
And that's it with the AL Central. So right now, who's your team that you think is the best so far in the Central? Just looking through the stats and all that stuff. You didn't have to do what I did yesterday with all the points and tallies and stuff. I just had time to do that.
I'm still going to say the Indians.
Okay.
The Indians, and then the Tigers, and probably the Royals. Top three.
Okay.
The Royals and Tigers are pretty much about even.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Twins and the White Sox at the bottom of the division. So you're going to see a pretty heated battle 2 through 3, 2 through 4 for the AL Central.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what you said earlier, and just a little quick take. It seemed like the Royals and the Detroit Tigers are kind of the same in a way, but the Detroit has the batters and they're hitting well, while the Royals have the pitching and they're doing well. It's just flip-flopped.
Yep.
So, all right, if that is everything about the AL Central, I think we're done for the day.
We are.
Taking 12 hours to do
one.
all this. Yeah, it was another good one, but taking 12 hours to do everything. And I mean, rants, raving, and everything else in between. Life taking over.
It was a lot better to do it like this, because last night we would have been up till midnight, 1 o'clock, and by that we would have just been groggy and cranky.
Yeah, and slurring our words because we would be so tired from doing everything. But that's just me, though. So anyway, if you want to listen to more of our podcast, we have an iTunes, we have a SoundCloud account, which I need to actually pay that off because now everybody wants my money from bills and everything else. But we do have those two. I do upload the shows onto YouTube also at the MLBeers podcast. Easy to find. Of course, the little profile picture is our logo, of course. But if you want to contact us, we have a Twitter at MLBeers podcast, or if you want to email us about questions, comments, I guess concerns, if you really want to spew your concerns about a baseball and beer podcast, we have an email at majorleaguebeers@gmail.com. We also have a website. Of course, it's not fancy like MLB.com or ESPN, but we do get it done there. We have all the podcasts there. We have all of our social media links there. We have even the historical showdowns in our each episode. So if you go there and you don't want to go to YouTube, you go to our website, look for an episode, and we started at episode 5. So from episode 5 to now, we have all of the MLB showdowns, historical showdowns, in those posts. So if you want to listen to the podcast once you're done and you're really interested in watching the historical showdown, instead of going straight to YouTube, you can just watch it from right there. And I think they're trying to make it into 1080p or 1080i with Bandicam, but it doesn't look like that. But don't blame me. I guess blame society for that. But anyway, what am I missing? We have an Instagram account, which is just the normal MLBeers podcast. Isn't that right, Phil?
Yes. Follow us all there. You'll see pictures of our beers and whatever else I feel like my camera can take a picture of.
Oh, yeah, and also we have an Untapped app, too. We're part of the Untapped group now.
Yep, follow us on there. It's all the same username. Give us a follow, rate our beers, give us feedback, comment, toast us. We'll talk to you. Yeah,
of course. We're not afraid to talk to any of our fans. We like to have fan commentary for our shows and all that stuff. So, is there anything else that I missed with that? I think I got everything.
Yeah, it sounds like you're able to run through everything, so no. And if you want to get this, hold us with any personal questions, just hit us on our regular Twitter accounts. I'm at Philco816.
And Andrew, I'm at RealAWS13 on Twitter. So I just had something on my mind, and then I just it was something. I just completely forgot it. I'll just let it slide, I guess. Damn you, coffee in the morning. But then again,
too much caffeine.
I guess. But anyway, so this is it for episode 7. I'm glad that we're reaching milestones every time we're on, but so I'm glad to finally close this one after 12 hours of doing this podcast. I'm here to close it out for you. So this is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. I hope that you all enjoy your day. And of course, here, our motto, win or lose, there is always booze.